The beautiful vibe of 90s R&B songs is just unmatched. And especially in today's music, many R&B artists and producers are trying to capture and recreate this beautiful feeling of this era. So in this video, I want to show you what's important to get that old school R&B kind of style by breaking down one of my samples. I think one of the most important aspects of these kind of samples is the simplicity. If you listen to these older songs, most of them are very simple, with mostly just a catchy melody, a bass line and some drums. But keeping it simple doesn't mean that you can just be lazy and make a sample in 2 minutes. I actually feel like it makes it more difficult because the less elements you have, the better each of these elements has to be, if that makes sense. So you can't just add random stuff on top of each other and rather spend time getting into the details of every sound and making sure everything sounds perfect and works well with each other. So keeping that in mind, I started off with some simple catchy chords on my acoustic guitar. These two chords at the end might sound a bit dissonant now, but I felt like they make a pretty beautiful turnaround at the end of the loop, and they'll also make more sense later together with the other instruments. So next I added a very simple lead melody with the guitar. I made sure that it kind of blends in with the chords and doesn't stand out too much with any crazy riffs or anything. Then I added a bass line. For that I used my bass guitar, even though I can't play it that well. But for these kind of samples I really like to do live recordings of as many elements as possible, just to keep that natural human kind of sound to it. I tried to mostly keep the bass line simple by playing along with the root notes, but I also added a few little embellishments. Just by adding little accents at the right time you can really elevate your bass lines and also add more bounce to the entire sample. Now that I had this beautiful foundation, I wanted to bring in some vocals. I wanted them to sound like they were sampled from like an old song. So for that I actually made a simple little drum loop, just so I have a bounce and it's easier to find some pockets for the vocals. To make the vocals, I pitched the sample down 4 semitones, just because I can't sing very high, and also so I can pitch the vocals up later. And now I tried to come up with a little vocal line. I recorded some lead vocals, some little ad-libs in between, and a background layer. Disclaimer, I don't know how to sing, how to write lyrics or how to mix vocals, so this is gonna be embarrassing, but trust the process. And to make these horrible vocals work, we'll have to add lots of secret sauce. And for that I used the sponsor of this video, which is Audemy. Audemy is a platform where you can process and transform your vocals using AI. And I think the best way to show you what it can do is by showing you what I did for these vocals. After uploading the vocals to Audemy, you can choose one of all these different voices to apply to your vocals. I chose this pretty lady right here. I pitch corrected my vocals immediately in FL Studio because my natural singing is just unbearable. But you can actually even pitch correct your vocals in Audemy. You can even edit stuff like vibrato and get really detailed with your editing. Then before converting the voice, I pitched it up 4 semitones right here to get back to the original key, but also because a higher pitch works better with female voices. So after doing that for all 3 layers, we have this. And And now it's time for my favorite feature of Audemy, which is the harmony maker. With that you can turn a single vocal layer into an entire choir. I just uploaded my female vocals again, and after choosing the right key I can add up to 5 different tracks to harmonize with my vocals. Here you can choose the different voices and harmonies yourself, or just use one of the presets. I just used the R&B stack preset for this and just modified it a little bit. So as you can see, you can choose what kind of harmonies each voice sings. You can also pitch it up or down an octave, and if you want to get really detailed you can pitch edit every single voice individually. When you convert it you can download all the layers, and you get a folder where every layer is already panned and time shifted a bit, so you get more of that natural choir feeling. So I did that for the background vocals and the ad-libs, and for the lead vocals I made my own little preset where I just used the same voice 2 times, once for the higher octave and once for the 5th, and I only used a few parts of that to kind of double the more important parts of the vocals. And now after a bit of processing, like for example pushing the background vocals more into the background with reverb and delay and just some simple vocal effects, we have this. So like that I could make some vocals I can actually work with, even with my horrible singing. So if you want to check out Audemy you can use the link in my description, and if you decide to go for a paid plan you can use my code LUCID20 to get 20% off. Thanks a lot Audemy for sponsoring this video and for saving my vocals. So now I kept the background vocals and the ad-libs pretty much the same, but I flipped the lead vocals a little bit to make them feel more like a sample. I pretty much just made them twice as fast and picked the best slices, and at the end, because I wanted this more sample high-pitched feeling to the vocals, I just pitched everything up 3 semitones. So that's already all the elements for the first section. Like I said, you want to keep it very simple, not add many layers, but instead just get really into the details of each instrument. To transition to the next part I added some strings. For strings I feel like it's often very hard to get a beautiful sound. So what I like to do is layering a few different strings. I like to use these different articulations from the session strings in Contact. I use the normal sustain strings, the tremolo and the slide. And then I also added some strings from Triton. And this little one shot at the end. For the second section I took out the vocals to have more space for other instruments, and first of all I added some keys. I used Triton, which is just a perfect VST for these old school R&B kind of sounds. You can just type in EP for electric piano and you'll find some amazing sounds. I don't really know how to describe them, but they all have this beautiful old school sounding sparkle to them, which is just perfect for these samples. I only layered the chords with the keys, but I played them in live as well on my MIDI keyboard. I suck at playing the keys and I usually play tons of wrong notes, but I can easily fix the wrong notes in the piano roll, and by playing it in live I just get the more natural rhythm and velocity variations. If I had to pick one instrument that represents the sexiness of the R&B sound, it would definitely be the Sine Lead, so that's what I added next. I used this simple sine one-shot and modified it just a little bit. I added a very subtle pitch LFO to make it wobble just a little bit, and I used these polyphony settings to make it act like an actual lead sound, so I can only play one note at a time, and to make the transition between the notes slide a little bit. For these kind of melodies you have to play around a little while until something really catches your ear. You really want to experiment until you find the perfect melody line for the sample. Otherwise it just doesn't hit. The only effect that I used on this sound is little alter boy to add a pitch down layer. I also automated it to only have it in the beginning, which enhances this call and response feeling a bit. addition to the Sine Lead, I added a Sine Pad, which just comes in once and plays like a few transition chords. And that's already everything for the second part. Again, not many elements, pretty simple, but with lots of attention to detail. For the last part, I took out the guitars completely, just wanting to take out the energy a bit and just switch it up a little bit. I started by filling out the space a bit with a very soft pad. It just plays the chords and the sound is from Triton again. So we have beautiful guitar chords, smooth keys, a catchy bass line, a sexy Sine Lead. So to add one more of the most cliché R&B sounds, I added a wah guitar. For the wah pedal sound I used guitar rig, and I pretty much stayed on one note the entire time, just wanting to give a bit of rhythm and energy to the sample, with a few simple variations here and there. And lastly, I wanted to add one more interesting little accent. For that I used a Rhodes sound and I played in a few simple runs, mainly just arpeggiating the root chord. The only special thing about the pattern is this one out of scale note. It's one semitone below the fifth. I think it's called the blue note because it's used in blues a lot, and it just gives a more jazzy, emotional kind of feeling to the runs. And that's everything for the sample. I finished it off by just adding a few textures, like for example a bit of vinyl noise, some snaps, and some quiet little sound effects and ear candy. hope you could learn something. Let me know if you like this sample and also what I could do better, because I'm still pretty new to this kind of sound. If you like my sound and my samples, you can check out my Lucid Weekly subscription, where I send you little sample packs with samples, starters, textures, one-shots, accents, all kind of stuff every single Sunday. Link is in the description. Thank you again, Audemy, for sponsoring this video. The link to them and the discount code is in the description as well. And yeah, thanks for watching.